Today is Wednesday, January the 4th, 2012. I'm Matthew T.G.
I'm Heath Mulliken.
I'm Steve Stanley.
And I'm Tony Casey. Welcome to the Techology Show, a weekly podcast featuring technology, theology, and everything in between. The world's only user-antagonistic podcast. This is episode 138.
Woohoo!
Happy New Year. Welcome to good job there, Master TG, on remembering it was 2012.
Just about slipped up. It was the last minute. Wait a minute. 2012.
All right, listen, I'm going to throw it to you for a few announcements.
Yeah, so we have got giveaways to talk about, but before we do that, in our chat room, we would like to invite you guys as we do this show live. We have the chat room that you can interact with. You can ask us questions. You can ask Mark questions when we get into our interview with him if you'd like to do so. But we're also giving away a copy of The Circle Maker to those of you that got up early to join us for our podcast this morning in the chat room. So be sure to get signed in for that. If you don't have a Ustream account, you have to have one to get signed in. So I've included a link right on our front page that says if you don't have a Ustream account, click here to get one. You can get all signed up and join us for that. Then we're going to be giving away 2 other books to those who weren't able to join us live, those that will listen to the show recorded. One on Twitter, one on Facebook. Heath's going to handle the one on Twitter, so I think just by tagging our show on Twitter, you'll be entered for that. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Same deal on Facebook. I'll be handling that one. So just tag our show on Facebook. Let us know that you'd like to be entered for the drawing for one of the books, and that will get you in. Tony,
And let me add this.
sir.
The giveaway today in the chat room is the Kindle edition of The Circle Maker. So, all right. As many of you know, Mark Batterson is our guest today. Mark serves as the lead pastor of National Community Church in Washington, D.C., recognized as one of America's 25 most innovative churches. NCC is one church with 7 locations. Mark's blog, markbatterson.com, and webcast, theaterchurch.com, also reach a virtual congregation around the world. Mark is the author of several best-selling books, including In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. Great book. He and his wife, Laura, live on Capitol Hill with their 3 children, and today he joins us to talk about his most recent book, The Circle Maker. Mark, welcome to the show.
Man, so good to be with you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking time out of a busy schedule. Let's jump right in. Why this book? Why now?
Well, I've never met anybody that said that they pray too much. All of us feel like we fall short in the area of prayer. And I think it's the single most important thing that we can do, to kneel at the feet of an almighty God. What an opportunity. And so my goal for the book is simply that people would actually pray more, that it wouldn't just be a book that they read, but a book that really prompts them to seek the heart of God.
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve.
That's wonderful. I have to say that I admire your decor there, too. If I didn't make that statement, people wouldn't think it was me here on the show, all those books behind you. But throughout this book, you talk about drawing circles around people and situations, and I wonder if you could unpack that a little bit for our listeners.
Sure. Well, one of the stories that I share is a 4.7-mile prayer walk that I did around Capitol Hill 15 years ago. And to make a long story short, Ebenezer's Coffee House, the movie theater on Main Street, Capitol Hill, the $8 million piece of property that we own debt-free, all of them miracles. All of them are right on that 4.7-mile prayer walk that I did 15 years ago.
Wow.
I do not think that's a coincidence.
Right.
I think it's providence. But I also want to say in the same breath, this is not a magic formula. It's not about just physically circling something. Listen, I circle my kids with Luke 2:52. May you grow in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and with man.
Good.
By circling, I just mean you keep praying it over and over, and you don't just pray, you pray through.
Wonderful.
Mark, one of the quotes in the book says, if your prayers aren't impossible to you, they are insulting to God. As you look back on your life and your ministry, what would you say is the most audacious prayer you've ever prayed?
Well, you know, one of the first things that comes to mind was when our church started meeting at Union Station. I'm about a block from there right now, and we were a congregation of maybe 25 people. And here, when it was built in 1908, it was the largest building under a ceiling in the world, and it seemed too big. But I felt like God prompted me to see if we could meet there. And of course, God opened that door, and we met there for 13 years. And I remember feeling so small, you guys, but I think too often we pray prayers that we're able to do ourselves, and it doesn't even invite God into the equation. And so I think, when I made that statement in the book, it's about creating situations where our impotence, if you will, meets God's omnipotence. And those are some of the greatest moments in life, when God just invades your reality and does something that is an answer to prayer.
Mark, a couple questions here, just kind of piggybacking off what you just said. Don't you think that part of our hang-up with prayer sometimes is fear? What if I get out here and I pray this audacious prayer and it's not answered, at least in the way that I'm asking God to answer it?
Yeah, I mean, it's discouraging and disappointing when you pray something and then you don't get the answer that you expected. Let me be the first person to say that I don't think that my prayer batting average is any better than anybody else.
Yeah, very good.
We all swing and miss at different times, and that's because we're not omniscient. And sometimes we ask for the wrong thing, or we ask for the wrong reason, or it's the wrong time. And I think we need the humility to recognize that, someday we're probably going to thank God for the unanswered prayers as much as the answered prayers. And so we need a degree of humility, I think, when we're in prayer, and realize that just because we don't get what we want, listen, that certainly doesn't mean that God's not able, and it certainly doesn't mean that God didn't hear it. It just means it isn't the right time or the right place.
Yeah, very good. At one point in the book, you say that prayers are prophecies. Unpack that a little bit.
Well, I think prayer is the way that we create the future. There's a difference between letting things happen and making things happen. It's the difference between passivity and proactivity. And I think prayer is the difference. In fact, let me throw this one out there, because I love this idea, especially for those who might be in ministry, those who are really trying to serve the Lord. Listen, prayer is the difference between you fighting for God and God fighting for you. There's a lot of people that are fighting hard for God, and the Lord loves that. He's pleased when we work hard, when we work like it depends on us. But when you start to pray, then God begins to fight your battles for you. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned here, that you can't just work like it depends on you. You also have to pray like it depends on God.
Good. You wrote in your book, and I'm quoting now, "We pray as if God's chief objective is our personal comfort. It's not. God's chief objective is His glory, and sometimes His gain involves a little pain." Can you sketch out a little bit of that for us?
Yeah.
We don't like the subject of pain.
I want to be absolutely clear that while this is a book that challenges people to dream big, pray hard, think long, and believe God to do the impossible, let me be explicit. God is not a genie in a bottle, and our wish is not His command. His command needs to be our wish. Far too many of our prayers, I think, are selfish in nature, and if God answered them, it would actually undermine our spiritual development. And so I think what I mean there is just let's make sure that we understand this twofold litmus test for prayer. Number one, is it in the will of God?
Right.
And if it's not going to happen. And number two, is it for the glory of God? Certainly. And listen, I found that there's a fine line between thy kingdom come and my kingdom come. And let's be honest about that. And if it's not about His kingdom and His glory, then that prayer is not going to happen.
Yeah, when I was reading that section of the book, Mark, as you just worded it, I thought of Jesus in the garden when the cross is before him, and clearly he doesn't want this personally, and he prays that the cup might pass, but the will of God was suffering for him. And I love this part of your book, and I love the good word there, and it reminded me that we need to refocus our prayers on not so much God, get me out of this, but God, what do you want to do through this?
Yeah, and I think how many of us know people who have been Christians for 25 years, but they don't have 25 years of experience. They have 1 year of experience repeated 25 times. And I think a lot of that is because we're always praying, God, get me out of this, get me out of that, instead of what can I get out of it? And prayer is not just about changing our external circumstances. Now, it can do that. It can move mountains. I believe that. But it's also about changing the internal circumstances, what's going on in my mind, in my heart. And I think prayer is both, and it's the external, but also the internal.
Mark, it's the beginning of a new year, and one of the quotes I really liked in the book was, if you want God to do something new in your life, you can't do the same old thing. It will involve more sacrifice, but if you're willing to go there, you'll realize that you didn't sacrifice anything at all. People are at the new year making New Year's resolutions, and they're looking back at all the resolutions they didn't keep last year. How can this concept of drawing prayer circles help people finally get out of the rut that they've been in and take some new territory in their life?
Yeah. Well, let me just speak personally. When I wrote that part of the book, I realized that one of the things I wasn't real good at was fasting. It's probably the spiritual discipline that I struggle with the most, and I'll tell you why. Because I like food.
Hey, breaking news right here on the Technology Show.
Only here.
Yeah.
So over the last year, I've tried to, because I'm hungry for God to do something new and for him to move in new ways, I've practiced that fasting discipline a lot more in the past year. And here's one little thing I learned, that when you circle something in prayer, and then when you fast, it's almost like double circling it. And there is something about that is powerful when you engage in prayer and fasting. And of course, we all think of what Jesus said, that, in this instance where a demon couldn't be cast out, and Jesus says, some only come out by prayer and fasting. Listen, I wanna stretch and challenge and push those who are tuning in today. Listen, you need to try something new. You need to do something new. You can't keep doing the same old thing and then expect God to move in a new way. But the good news is if you begin engaging in spiritual disciplines with a little more intensity or consistency, man, you are going to see a tremendous difference in your life. I believe that.
Mark, you've already touched on this, but I want to come back to it. Talk to us a little bit about the paradox of praying to a sovereign God.
Yeah, well, why? Why do we have to even ask?
Yeah.
Good question.
But God is determined in his sovereign will that some things he will only do in response to our request. Jesus said, you have not because you ask not. And then I kind of take that and say, you have not because you circle not. Now, I don't fully understand that. I don't know why God doesn't always just sovereignly move, but for whatever reason, he is determined that we need to be engaged in the process. And that's true of everything, isn't it? It's the great co-mission. It's his mission, but then we're invited to be a part of that. And so prayer is like that. And for me, when I do devotions with my kids in the morning before school, one of the verses that I've quoted, memorized, and read the most lately is this wonderful promise in Hebrews where it says, approach the throne of grace with confidence that you might receive mercy and find grace to help you in your time of need.
Yeah, very good.
Is that not the most amazing invitation in the world? And so God invites us into his throne room, and we need to approach the throne of grace with boldness.
One of the things I appreciated about this book was it just feels real all the way through. To someone who's been in ministry, I've been in ministry for 35 years, and there were so many places that I was agreeing and identifying at a deeper level than just the intellectual level. You wrote towards the end of the book, when you live by faith, it often feels like you're risking your reputation. You're not. You're risking God's reputation. It's not your faith that's on the line. It's his faithfulness. And that's almost electric with reality. Can you fill in a little bit more for somebody that might be discouraged today and the devil's suggesting to them that, well, you've been presumptuous. You've gone beyond faith and into presumption. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. Maybe I could take that idea and just apply it to finances. You know, a lot of people right now are budgeting for the new year. And of course, with the recession, it's put a lot of financial pressure on people. 19 years ago, my wife and I made what I call a pre-decision. It's a decision before you have to make a decision so that you don't have to make a decision in the heat of the moment. And that decision was that we would never not tithe. In other words, the first 10% of our income would go back to God. And then our goal is that we would give a greater percentage of our income back to God every year. Now, when I tithe, here's what I believe. My finances are no longer my responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
They're God's
Yeah,
responsibility.
so good. So good.
All of the pressure is off of me. It's off of my shoulders. I can take a deep breath and say, God, it is in your hands. Well, in much the same way, you know, prayer is the way that we cast our cares on God. And so we take them out of our, you know, tiny little hands. You know, here's my hand, and I guess it's a medium-sized hand, and it functions, but it's human. And I can take, when I pray, I take things out of my hands and I put them in God's hands.
Yes.
And when I do that, then it's his reputation that's at stake. It's not mine. And that's one of the greatest feelings in the world.
That's good.
You know, Mark, when I think about prayer circles, and you talk in the book about the 4-mile walk and the story of Honey where he gets in the circle and he physically draws that circle. Have you ever been in a situation where physically, emotionally, spiritually, you weren't able to do that motion, to go through that process of praying a circle or just encamping in something in prayer, and but other people came around you and kind of did it for you? And how can we do that for others who are in ministry and are perhaps struggling? How can we come alongside them and kind of walk them through and help draw a circle for them?
Yeah, that is such a great observation. And well, I guys, I love double entendres. I like saying it. It just, I don't know. Prayer circle is a double entendre because it means praying circles around things like the Israelites circled Jericho.
Sure.
Right.
But then in a lot of churches, you know, there's this language that a prayer circle is just a group of people that are praying together for some need. And so I really hope and pray that this book doesn't just inspire individuals to pray with more specificity and intensity and consistency, but my prayer is that people would then say, hey, let's read this book together, and then let's form a prayer circle around each other, because there are moments where we don't have the strength, we don't even have the faith to pray for something ourselves, and someone can come alongside us and challenge us in prayer, almost like Aaron and Hur, you know, who hold up the arms of Moses. In the same way, I've had that experience so many times. when I've been sick, one time a near-death experience, and I know that people were praying for me when I was on a respirator.
Wow.
And so many instances in ministry where I've lost a little bit of faith, and God's brought someone along and said, "Hey, I'm praying, I'm believing," and it's almost like it's kind of cold here today. So I saw a bunch of cars dead and people jump starting their battery. Well, prayer for another person has a way of it's the connection that sort of charges their battery in a sense,
Wow.
and helps them get that engine going again.
Mark, I want to jump back a little bit. When you talk about it's God's reputation, it's at stake, it reminds me of a story that Dr. Bob Bagley talks about when he goes to Africa. He's there as a missionary, first term, and he talks about the things that school did not prepare him for. He said, we started a new church meeting under a tree, and he said, one day I came to the village, and there's all kinds of talk. He said, I knew there's something underlying going on in the village. I didn't know what. And he said, when I got there, the local witch doctor had laid hands on the tree where they met and had done some kind of prayer. He said, well, when I came back a week later, he said, every leaf on the tree was gone. He said, the tree looked dead. And he said, now here I am. They hadn't prepared me for this in seminary. He said, I didn't know what to do. He said, the witch doctor had done a public prayer, so I decided, well, I need to do a public prayer. And he said, so with other believers, we laid hands on the tree, and he said, everyone's looking to me. And he said, my prayer was simple. Lord, it's not my name at stake. It's yours. And he said, when I came back a week later, then 2 weeks later, he said, there was a buzz in the village. And he said, that tree, there were new buds on it. And he said, from that time on, in his years there, he said, that was the only tree there in the compound that bear fruit twice a year. And I think, the concept here is that it is God's reputation. And these are commands that he has given us.
Right.
And he's called us to be bold on some of these things.
Wow, what an amazing story. But isn't it interesting that if he had not had the faith to pray that public prayer,
right?
Well, then in a sense, God would have been robbed of that glory.
Yeah.
And so I think many of us, would I have had the courage to get in a circle like that and pray? And wow, that challenges me. What was that missionary's name again?
Dr. Bob Bagley.
Okay.
I had him for a missions class in my undergrad, and
wow.
when he told that story, and I love his prayer. God, it's not my reputation at stake; it's yours.
Yeah.
It's not your. He said, it's not my name at stake; it's yours.
Yep.
And as a young man, to have the presence of mind to recognize that and to pray that publicly.
Yeah. Wow.
And the credibility that it gave him. All right. Well, we want to bring this in for a landing, and of course, now we want to get to the real reason why we brought you on the show. We need Super Bowl predictions for 2012.
Come on, Tony. Are you
operating in that gift?
Be bold. Come on. Exercise some faith here, Mark.
Whoa.
Well, I have to admit, there's a little bit of cheese in my blood.
Yes.
Oh, my.
For Christmas, I got one share of stock in the Green Bay
I am
Packers.
so envious.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb and predict the Packers. The Saints scare me a little
Yes. Oh boy.
but I'm hoping.
Hey, listen, in the chat room today, we have Marcy Burks in the chat room. Now, it's her son-in-law who's the assistant strength coach for the Green Bay Packers. So,
nice.
Yeah, so we at least have another fellow cheesehead in the chat room.
We actually
That's great.
We actually got to interview Zach during the lockout, and so if the Packers win, I'm hoping we can get him back on and he can flash that ring in front of
that's
the
right.
camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you're really hoping for is tickets, right?
Amen, brother. You got that.
Do shareholders get first dibs on that?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, Mark, thanks so much. Is there a place you'd like to direct our listeners, a website, materials, things of that nature?
Sure. Well, the circlemaker.com has a lot of free resources for churches that want to do small groups or a sermon series. And so we've got free trailers, posters, bookmarks, sermon series graphics, you name it, it's there. It's all free. And so that's the circlemaker.com. And then also bulk discounts on the book for those who might want to get it for a church-wide campaign or for small groups.
All righty. Well, Mark, again, thank you so much for taking time out of a busy schedule. We appreciate it. And in the future, I know that you have some audacious plans for more books in the future, so we'd love to have you on the show again as you have more material that comes out.
Hey, what a privilege, you guys, and thanks to everybody who took time to tune in. Happy New Year, and love the show. What a great half hour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, Mark.
All right.
All right, that was great, man.
Absolutely. A real pastor.
Yeah.
You felt that, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Coming through.
Oh, yeah.
Very genuine.
When you read the book, well, I've read two of his books, the In the Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day, and then The Circle Maker. Yeah, very real. And you, in the pre-show today, before you made the comment about what was it when he first started the church? He'd close his eyes and worship.
Yeah, yeah. He said there were only 25 people there.
Right.
And he said that was worshiping in that environment, which was so discouraging, was when he learned to close his eyes and worship.
Early on, there was a blizzard or something that hit DC, and so one of their first services, it was him and his family. That was everybody at church.
I've experienced that once. Hey, so yeah, if you ever get a chance to go to DC, one of the coolest experiences you could have is to add to your sightseeing events. Ebenezer's Coffee House. I got to walk through all the offices. I in person witnessed that bookshelf, that outstanding bookshelf.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you able to remain standing, or did you find yourself irresistibly drawn to your knees?
It's not an idol in the way it is for you, Steve.
It's not idle. It's kind of a worship aid.
Worship aid.
Also,
crazy.
I was talking about it before the show began, but I saw a few people didn't get it. But I also got to go to a service on a Saturday evening. They have church Saturday at 5:00, and then Sundays all around it. So, I mean, if I weren't a pastor and there was a church that had church on Saturday at 5, I would go because I love that. But anyways, it was the Sunday when they announced their new location at Barracks Row, which he also writes about in The Circle Maker, which was cool this past spring.
Well, it's worth the read, and
Absolutely.
I'd say this, that the book is profound, but not in that he gives you some special formula about prayer. It's profound in that it gets you back to bedrock principles of prayer.
More practical and
Yeah.
and more basic application to things that you encounter in day-to-day ministry than most books I've read.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our giveaway in the chat room real quick, because some people didn't catch that right at the beginning. We are giving away a Kindle version of this book. You don't have to have a Kindle to read the Kindle version. We've been talking about that in the chat room. There is actually a web reader, read.amazon.com, or applications for Windows computers, for Macintosh computers, for just about any kind of mobile device. Like you can get the Kindle reader on it. So that's a great opportunity for you. You're automatically entered to this drawing just for being in the chat room today. I've been taking names.
We've been taking
sounds
names.
tough. I've been taking names.
Yes, we
And
are.
if you would like to, if you would like to,
security.
if you'd like to not be entered because you say I already have the book and you'd like somebody else to have the opportunity to win it, just let me know. A few people have done that, and we thank you for your generosity and giving others a better chance at winning that. But giving that away, and then 2 more for our recorded listeners. We've got one for you too. Giving one on Twitter that Heath will be handling. If you tweet the Techology Show.
Yep, just mention the Techology Show in a tweet, and over the next couple of days, we'll kind of gather all those, and then
Next Wednesday will we announce our
next Thursday when we interview
Thursday,
Kim
that's right.
Meyer, we'll announce it.
That's right. And same for Facebook. We're giving one away there. So you really have 2 chances to win. If you tag our show on Facebook or right on our wall there, I'll get you entered to win that one as well. We'll announce the chat room winner, though, at the end of this show.
Yeah,
That's an important announcement, too, a reminder that it is next Thursday and not next Wednesday.
Yeah.
We'll cover that.
Yeah, when we close the show, we'll.
I think I've said this before, but you know, a lot of times, if you know me and you've listened to the show, Mark Batterson is a huge hero of mine. In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day, he's impacted my life so tremendously. I mean, started a website, chaseyourlion.com, and a lot of times when you meet your hero or somebody you've looked up to, sometimes you're just so disappointed,
Yeah, underwhelmed, right.
And with Mark Batterson, I mean, I love him even more than I did before because he's one of the most genuine guys I've ever met.
Yeah.
He has given us, gave us a live interview in Jacksonville, and just very gracious with his time and with being with us today.
And what's interesting, people wouldn't know this, but with the live interview in Jacksonville, he didn't want any questions up front. He said, "Let's just do it live."
Do it live. That's
yeah,
right.
and I always, with guests, I always try to send a list of questions, but my guess is that he doesn't pour over that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He's genuine. He responds from the heart. All right. Hey, listen, I got a picture last week. Now, at our general headquarters of the Wesleyan Church, I think that they're really trying to save money and find creative ways. So I understand that they're carpooling now, and I think we have a picture here of Dr. There we are. Yeah, carpooling at headquarters now. And I think that's Dr. Lyon's administrative assistant, Priscilla Hammond. And so it's really not. Priscilla sent me that.
I was going to say.
I'm kidding. Priscilla sent that picture. Dr. Lyon was out in Arizona, and I don't know all the things about that. But I loved the picture. Thought I'd have some fun with it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Shows a very authentic general superintendent.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, let's keep going here. No download of the week. Let's move right on to They Said It.
Read my lips.
I'm going to say this again.
I've never taken steroids or HGH.
I took the initiative in creating the internet.
The Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard.
I'm not a crook.
If you know what you're doing here, slide out.
Clearly, a lot of folks who buy Kindle Fires simply are not in the market for a $500 tablet. These are customers that either would have purchased a $100 Kindle or no tablet at all. There are some customers who clearly wanted to gift a tablet this year, and it's cheaper to gift a Fire than an iPad. That's where the impact comes in. Morgan Keegan analyst Tavis McCourt explaining the impact of the Kindle Fire on the tablet market. Source, Examiner.
The mandate also forces Colorado Christian to fund government-dictated speech that is directly at odds with its own speech and religious teachings. Having to pay a fine to the taxing authorities for the privilege of practicing one's religion or controlling one's own speech is un-American, unprecedented, and flagrantly unconstitutional. Part of the wording in Colorado Christian University's lawsuit against the Obama administration's mandate requiring businesses to pay for insurance plans that cover two types of birth control pills the college and other pro-life advocates view as abortion agents. Source, The Washington Times.
It is challenging in many parts of the country to lead new churches to want to be part of a convention with such a regional name. Bryant Wright, Southern Baptist Convention president, on forming a task force to consider changing the 116-year-old denomination's moniker. Source, Baptist Press. So what's everyone laughing about here? What is it? What is that?
Somebody put up that picture of Mark Wilson in the
yeah,
chat room. We're
our
trying to
listeners
do a
don't
show.
even know what we're talking about.
Oh my word! Thank you, chat room. What in the world?
Our people who are listening to this after the fact have to understand that there are times that I'm on an island all alone.
Yeah.
That these guys, this happened to the last show, that I'm running it and they're in the chat room playing. All right, hey.
We're not going to be able to link to that picture. Okay, Tony.
What in the world?
What is that? I don't know.
All right, sorry. Wow, I love Pastor Mark, but now I'm a little scared. Sorry. Oh man, I'm so off track.
All right,
I don't
okay.
know why they're laughing either.
Let me ask you guys a question. Talked about tablets a little bit. I was on Tech Talk Tuesday yesterday with David Gould on the Good Morning Show, and I think that tablets, the lower they come in price, they're going to replace these little cruddy netbooks people are buying. What do you think about that, Tony?
They've already replaced them.
Then I'm right.
2011 was the year that I think. I mean,
Oh, okay.
I think
But that's
good.
post-diction, not prediction at this point.
No.
I mean, I'm curious what you think, Matthew. I mean, I would say that happened in 2011. That's not something that's going to happen. It's already happened.
Netbooks? Is that what it was said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, netbooks have been dead for a
Okay.
while. I mean, they were
So I was
very
right.
much a passing
This
fad.
is
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, your prediction was great
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Now Tony has a
Would've been a
Kindle
good-
Fire,
And I predict I'll be born in 1957.
Very good, Steve.
And what? Now this is your
This
mother-in-law's.
is my mother-in-law's. And I mean, if you're familiar with a tablet at all, $200 for the Kindle Fire, and it's Android based. Amazon has their own curated market. You can sideload other Android apps, but it's been great to watch my mother-in-law with this thing because I would say she's not computer savvy, but she loves it. This morning when I asked her if I could borrow it for the show, she said, "Oh, I want to show you something else I learned." I mean, she's learning things on her own with it. She reads on it every night. She goes to it. She's discovering the world of apps, and an app for this, app for that. And I think with the price point, I mean, this is the big thing. And the reason we had the quote in the show today is I still am a believer that this is not replacing the iPad. And it is tapping into a market that otherwise wouldn't be in the market for a tablet.
Yeah.
Your wife has.
Yeah, she has one, and she uses it in medical administration. And for their purposes, it's more highly recommended than the iPad.
Why is that? Do you know?
Just because of the applications and the integration with different features on the new system of keeping records and tracking and so forth. I guess, again, Apple's proprietary approach to everything and their lockdown of everything, which is one of the selling points that you all recommend, but it's the thing that made them the minor player in the market originally, is going to work against them in this field as well. But it's been favorably reviewed by several medical journals, the Kindle Fire. My wife just loves hers as much as your mother-in-law loves the one you got her.
Let me ask this. iPad 3 and Google tablet's supposed to come out this year. Do you think when the iPad 3 comes out, do you think they're going to jack the iPad 2 price down close to Kindle? $350?
No.
You don't think?
No, there is. I mean, so they did the same thing with the iPhone 4 and with the 3GS. You can get one of those for free. There's rumor that they will.
Oh, I think they'll come
to
down.
battle this. That they're gonna have a lower price point. Maybe not $199, but a lower price point for.
Because I'm going to
$500.
be honest. If I've
Hey,
got a
well,
choice,
there's a news. Keith is going to be honest. Wow.
write it down. January
Yes,
the
on the
4th,
line.
2012. If they jack the iPad 2 price down to $250, and I'm choosing because right now I'm leaning in Kindle Fire when I save up my paper route money. But if they jack that iPad price down, that's going to be a tough decision.
I'll tell you what I'm interested in as I look at the device. I've seen two of them now. We have another young lady in our church that got one for Christmas too. Is the size? I've wondered, and I'd have to actually have it in my hands for a length of time to know how that 7-inch tablet compares to something that's 10 inches. I mean, it was smaller than I imagined. A 3-inch difference didn't seem as big in my mind as it does, but it looks nice. The screen looks really good. The resolution looks great from what I see, but I wonder about that form factor, how I would handle that.
Well, I compare it with this one. I have the HP touchpad, and
You get the luxury of doing that because you have a mother-in-law that has the Kindle Fire.
Yeah,
Does that have
I
the
love the
digital
form
ink?
factor of this. I will say it's nice to have it in one hand. What'd you say?
Does that have the digital ink like the other Kindles?
No. It's a tablet LCD screen. Let's move on to some of these other quotes here. I want to get to Steve. You sent me the one about the Colorado Christian University. For those that don't quite know what's going on, the quote here basically because of what the Obama administration has mandated in terms of insurance that institutions have to have. Now you have Christian institutions that are forced to pay for services that they think are unethical or immoral. I mean, basically, isn't that what we have here?
Contrary to their religious beliefs. And here's the thing that's so frustrating about this. Language in that legislation explicitly says that no faith-based group is going to be compelled to act against its beliefs. Come along, the way it's being applied and interpreted by the bureaucrats is you must, or you're in violation of the law.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really another sign that we've gone across a border into an area of legislation that interrupts our civil liberties. And that's why I'm proud that Colorado Christian University is standing up. Now, it doesn't matter to me what your view of those two pills may be.
Right.
The fact that their religious beliefs, sincerely held religious beliefs, are being violated and they're standing up for them ought to comfort all others who have similar concerns.
Isn't this, a clear violation of the first, maybe not the First Amendment? I know there's not a technically separation of church and state, but isn't this violating the spirit
religious
of that?
freedom here?
Right.
Is what,
The clause that you're referring to is, or prohibit the free exercise thereof, and it's speaking about religion. And obviously, to compel you, me, anyone else, to do something that violates the most basic tenets of our religious conviction is prohibiting us from exercising our religion freely.
I wonder how this is affecting our Wesleyan schools, because most of them provide health insurance for their employees.
yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I wasn't even aware of this until Steve sent me the link on it and got it on my radar screen. So,
Well, I had heard rumblings of this when Obamacare first passed, but they've only filed this lawsuit in the last few months, or just very recently, or has it been a while?
it's recent. Now, my understanding of what we call Obamacare, 2012. Now, this is the year that things begin to kick in.
Yeah.
As I understand it.
It doesn't matter to me who's behind it. I
Right.
have no personal animus for any politician, or what I'm getting at here and what they're addressing is
very good.
this treads on our civil liberties. We're going to defend those civil liberties to the extent that we can, so that we can continue to practice our religious faith.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the largest evangelical denomination in the United States is meeting and at least low-level conversations about changing the denomination's name, the Southern Baptist.
Well,
Midwestern Baptist.
as I can speak as a recovering Southern Baptist, I can speak to this.
Help him, Lord.
I just, that's the way they've always done it. I don't know why they would change now. I'm just being kind of facetious. I do think he does have a point.
I think this is a no-brainer, to be
It
quite
was
honest
always
with
a joke. It was always a joke. You'd travel up north, like, oh, they got Northern Baptist up here. Can you really have a Southern Baptist church in the state of New York?
I think one of the things that I give the Southern Baptist high marks for is a decade or more ago, they gave a public apology for their stance on slavery and human rights issues, which I commend them for that. I mean, they publicly repented of that.
Yes.
And I think to change the name of the denomination helps them to get one step further away from that, because the Southern Baptists, I mean, the split was over.
Yes.
The issue of slavery.
They were the exact opposite of the Wesleyan Methodists.
They really were.
But could I say something?
No.
And
then
could I say this? I will say this.
Okay.
And that is that I really don't think their biggest problem is a name problem. I mean, you have Russian Orthodox churches and Greek Orthodox churches in America, for crying out loud.
Really?
The biggest problem, and I know we probably don't want to go there, but since they have begun to be divided over the issue of 5-point Calvinism, the choice that God has allegedly in the 5-point Calvinists' view, that a double predestination, he's chosen and elected some to be saved and the others not to be damned.
Right.
And those who have been chosen to be saved will be saved in their view, regardless of whether you ever preach the gospel to them or not. Those who will be damned no matter how many times they hear the gospel. That has blunted the missionary, in my opinion, the missionary outreach of that church like nothing in its past. And since it has gained the upper hand in some of the seminaries, from the time earlier in this past decade, from that time forward, the way they measure conversions is by baptisms. And the number of baptisms has nosedived for the first time I'm aware of on record. Mm-hmm. And so...
And that hasn't been real public.
No, they don't talk about that. But once that distills down into the pew level, that, wait a minute, if I give $1,000 to missions, if I send my kids to the mission field or go as a second career missionary, the chances are not changed or improved one iota. Well, then why not just kind of coast a little bit? And you can advance all the arguments in the world. Well, God wants the righteous to do this, but wait a minute. If I'm chosen to be among the righteous, not doing it's not going to cost me anything. And if I'm not chosen to be among the righteous, doing it's not going to help me out anyhow. I end up in hell anyway. So it just strips.
So do you think this story is an ignoring of the elephant in the room?
Well, I think it is. I think any discussion that they have, churches right here in the Greenville area, two of them, I won't name their names, but two significant churches have recently gone over to the 5 Point Calvinist camp, and it is blunting their whole outlook on missions and evangelism.
Let me ask a question. One of the things that people are talking about in the chat room, the Southern Baptists they're talking about their name while, just like you said, they're closing churches. Their church is dwindling. Some would say that right now in our denomination, we're in the midst of talking about our structure and trying to get that organized this summer. And some would say we're kind of involved in the same thing. We do need to talk about our structure, and that needs to be as effective as it is. But at the same time, we're talking about that, and we're closing churches left and right. So how do we, as we look at the Southern Baptists, kind of what they're going through, and we can see, man, that's really not the issue. How do we kind of look in the mirror to our own selves and say, okay, how do we in our denomination, although we had a great year in 2010, how do we kind of reverse the trend and grow?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer for that. I think part of, when we had Dave Drury on 2-3 weeks ago, part of when the general superintendents went around and had these pastors formed. I think we're in process, and I do think the restructuring. I believe that Steve does get at a fundamental thing I hadn't really thought of, and that is, in my lifetime, the Southern Baptists have been way out there on baptisms. They publish this stuff, this denomination growing, and now the secret is this: they're not. They're beginning to dovetail. And so I look at these as two different things. I mean, we're talking about structure in the Wesleyan Church and ways that we can facilitate the local church in terms of the mandate. Right. And I mean, Steve may be right here that there's something else in-house that needs to be addressed that goes beyond.
And for ourselves, let me acknowledge that. We too have our own issues. I would say that I think some of the churches that are closing are the right churches to close. And what you're seeing is the planting of churches who are missional, are focused, and they're focused on the mission of God to this world, to evangelize, yes, and also to advance His reclamation of this fallen world and to restore this creation, this beautiful creation that He's given us. And so those are the churches with a vision and with purpose, who are growing and planting other churches. And this is a natural sloughing off of old ideologies that aren't focused on the mission of God, and a reseeding of our denomination with those that are. And then there's other churches that are morphing. They're changing midstream. They understand the language of Charles Wesley. To serve the present age, my calling to fulfill, O may it all my powers engaged to do my master's will. And so they're retooling to reach this generation. They've not lost sight of the issue that Christ cares about the lost and about people and about their needs and about what they're experiencing. And those churches are transforming into agents of grace and his presence. I think as long as that continues, we have hope. And our message permits that. But that's different than a denomination that says God's already fixed everything, predetermined everything. And there's no basis within that to provide a change. There's no foundation to say, okay, we things are bad, but we can be different. You can't say that in if God sovereignly wants this to happen, he'll make it happen.
So do you think is the Southern Baptist Convention in the next 10 years facing a serious kind of a crossroads here? Because used to be you could go to, if you go to a Wesleyan church, we have a discipline that states our beliefs. That's one of the core values of who we are. But in the Baptist church, the local church is autonomous. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah,
I just like
that's
it. But you know what I mean? And so you could go to one Baptist church and there be some differences in beliefs.
I don't know if they're facing a crisis. I don't know if it'll look different in 10 years. I mean, some of the things that Steve has talked about certainly is not overstated. We're seeing it locally here, where there are really, churches that are taking, Southern Baptist churches that are taking a hard line, 5-point approach, and it's turning those congregations upside down. And so what's going to be the long-term effect? I don't know.
And this isn't just a Wesleyan making this observation. Those even 5-point Calvinists are my brothers and sisters in Christ, and I love them. I disagree violently with this self-fulfilling prophecy that it constitutes their theological perspective on that. But I would say this: you don't have to listen to a Wesleyan. When he was the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, Frank Page, then also pastor of Taylor's Baptist Church, wrote the book "The Trouble with the Tulip," and the tulip there is. It stands for the 5 points of Calvinism: total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, and perseverance of the saints. And he tackled this same thing head on as president of the Southern Baptist Convention. So that it's a slim volume. You can get it even at the Lifeway, which is, for all practical intents and purposes, the Southern Baptist bookstore.
Right.
And you can buy a copy of it there. And I would recommend it to anyone. He doesn't embrace a Wesleyan view of life, but he surely sounds the warning.
All right, let's change gears here real quick. This show is called the Techology Show. We're in the technologies, and I just heard about a new technology coming out, and I thought of Heath. I know Heath, is creative and has an aspiration to write, and this new technology may actually help you. Let's watch this here.
Isn't that the greatest? Imagine the drama club doing my play. Gosh, Amy, how'd you ever get started? Oh, one day my quiet writer and I got together and suddenly, inspiration.
It is the greatest. The way a Remington quiet writer helps stimulate interest in the young people, brings out the best in them. You know something, the minute you get your hands on this wonderful portable, you find yourself with an urge to express yourself. Now that can be mighty important, not only in school, but in later life too. Now then, how do you feel that the quiet writer can bring out and do all these wonderful things? Well, in the first place, it's the only portable with the fabulous 4. 4 fabulous features that make typing easier, faster, and neater. 1, the 88-character standard keyboard, exactly like the latest office typewriters. 2, the Miracle Tab. Sets and clears stops in front, makes indenting easier.
It's a miracle.
3, the large size, sure grip cylinder, so dependable you can type all the way to the bottom of your page and it won't slip.
Oh,
and 4, the super strength frame. It helps give shock resistance for years of extra life. Only the quiet writer has the fabulous 4, and yet it's so easy to own. You'll find
a
Remington
solid body
portables
Mac
complete
there.
with a very handsome carrying case,
Carved out of aluminum.
available at list prices of $84.50 to $133.95. And my friends, right now is the best time to see your Remington dealer, because right now he can make you the best deal. The down payment, only $5. After that, $1.50 a week, terms payable monthly, including taxes, and a small carrying charge. So I hope that you'll see your Remington dealer as soon as possible and get the young people in your family a Remington Quiet Rider. Help bring out the best in them.
We're thinking about getting you one, man.
Hey, there's one of these.
$84 to $130. Now I don't know, what 84
and
gets
just
you.
$5 down. Well, I'll have to see if I can get one. I'll have to go see my dealer.
Yeah,
and hopefully he can quote me a good price up front. Don't want to have to fill out all the paperwork to get a price. Hopefully I can, get my payments low. The only problem is I'm very concerned about the size of the bag that will go with the Remington. And is this the same Remington?
This is the portable now. It's the portable. Yeah,
okay.
This is the portable. So
Did they? Oh.
Do you think we'll get
Yeah,
that?
Carrie Kend in the chat room and Marcy Burke are just having a heyday of this, because this this is
I
where
heard
they
Marcy
live.
had this on her Christmas list. She's finally ready to upgrade.
Listen,
to
do you
something.
think we'll get this through the airport security?
You have to put it in its own thing.
You have to power it on so they can see it. All right, hey, let's talk about our giveaway for the.
Yeah, so are we ready to do this thing?
Yeah, we're ready to do it.
Let me get. I'll tell you what. Why don't you talk about Kem Meyer first?
All right.
While I get
Next
this prepared,
week
'cause I wasn't ready.
we have a pastors gathering, and so normally we don't do the show when we have the week of pastors gathering. But when we booked Kem Meyer, she made it clear that she could never do a Wednesday. And so what we're going to do is next week we're going to do our podcast on Thursday. So you can help us tremendously by getting the word out on that. Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. Kem Meyer is going to be with us talking about her book, Less Clutter, Less Noise. And I think also we're going to have a giveaway for that as well. So we'll be giving away her book. Some of you have read that book, and I have not. I understand from Heath, from Matthew, this is kind of the gold standard.
Yeah, for church communications.
Yeah,
it really is. So I really look forward. I'm just about as excited as I was with Mark. How cool! Two awesome authors, guests, big names, back to back for us. It's a really great opportunity. Okay. Here we go. In the chat room. Here we go. We are randomly generating, and our winner is BC Truth.
BC Truth. All right, BC Truth. This is what I'm going to need. I'm going to need your email address, and this is the Kindle edition of the Circle Maker, and it will be emailed to you. So get that to us, and we'll make sure that happens right away.
Yeah, email it to thetechologyshow@gmail.com.
All right. Again, we have already talked about Kem Meyer. Next Thursday on January 18th, we'll have Chad McCullum joining us via Skype. He's a church planter from the West Michigan District. Also on January 25th, Heath.
We're going to have Matthew DePrez. He was on several months ago talking about intergenerational ministry, and their church has gone through some changes in making intergenerational ministry more effective, and so we'll be talking about that with him. And then the following week, February 1st, we're going to have Reverend Scott Simmons, who is the Director of Youth Ministry for the Wesleyan Church. He's going to be on here to kind of piggyback on what we talk about with Matthew DePrez, and Scott's also going to be talking about the Follow Tour that went nationwide last year, and also the Follow International Wesleyan Youth Convention coming up in December in Louisville, Kentucky.
All right, very good. Heath, where can our listeners find you?
They can go to chaseyourlion.com or heathmullican.com, and a lot of great stuff going on, man. It's the new year, so I'm back to blogging and hoping to help people out this year.
Steve?
Practically nowhere, but you can find me on Google Plus at pastorses@gmail.com. I
can be found at matthewtg.com.
All right, you can find me at facebook.com/AKC64.
That was, what? Chat room, you've been getting on him. He has learned. Heath
missed it.
It is a new year.
Hey, listen, before we do the wrap up here, I just got to tell you, one of the best Facebook status updates of all time for 2011 was New Year's Eve at 10 p.m. Matt Rampy posts, well, I've got 2 hours to lose 20 pounds, read 40 books, and do a 14-mile hike.
Did he
We
did
should
he do
have
it?
checked
Did
in.
he get it done?
He had another status update and said that he read one blog in that 2 hours, walked upstairs, and I forget what, and lost whatever content was in his bladder. So there we go. Oh, me. All right. Listen, if you want to do any further research on things that we've discussed today, you can find all the links to the stories we covered at our website, thetechnologyshow.com. If you want to contact us, send your emails to thetechnologyshow@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail by calling us at 3049-TEOLOGY. That's 304-986-5649.
You'll make my day. Leave us a voicemail. I've got this set up for a reason, and it's cool. Call us and leave a comment.
Please do this for young Master TG. And listen, leave us a message. We may even play your comments on the air. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Adios.
Sayonara.
Aha, mito.
Arrivederci.